Kara Curry for rwnofficial.com. There are things that are just not cool. One of those, according to former President Barack Obama, is ignorance. In 2016, then President Obama said during a Rutgers University commencement address, "It's not cool to not know what you're talking about," in what could be clearly viewed as a swipe at Donald Trump, who at the time was likely the Republican nominee for president. It seems to be quite a mouthful for a man who during his 2008 campaign promised to be part of the most transparent administration ever. The entirety of the Obama presidency was one shrouded in secrecy and innuendo and division. If you were not on Obama's side and 100% in compliance with his agenda, you were the enemy and you would be eliminated sometimes through very public and scandalous means. Far from transparency, the Obama administration is most likely to go down in history as the least transparent and most corrupt in history. CBS News reports the Obama administration in its final year in office spent a record $36.2 million on legal costs defending its refusal to turn over federal records under the Freedom of Information Act, according to an Associated Press analysis of new U.S. data that also showed poor performance in other categories measuring transparency in government. For a second conservative year, the Obama administration set a record for times federal employees told citizens, journalists, and others that despite searching, they couldn't find a single page of files that were requested. It set records for outright denial of access to files, refusing to quickly consider requests described as especially newsworthy, and forcing people to pay for records who had asked the government to waive search and copy fees. The government acknowledged when challenged that it had been wrong to initially refuse to turn over all or parts of records in more than 1/3 of such cases, the highest rate in at least 6 years. In courtrooms, the number of lawsuits filed by news organizations under the FOIA Act surged during the past 4 years, led by the New York Times, Center for Public Integrity, and the Associated Press, according to a litigation study by the Transactional Records Access Clearinghouse at Syracuse University. The AP on Monday settled its 2015 lawsuit against the State Department for files about Hillary Clinton's time as Secretary of State at AP's request and received $150,546 from the department to cover part of its legal fees. The AP has pending lawsuits against the FBI for records about its decisions to impersonate an AP journalist during a criminal investigation and about who helped the FBI hack into the incident's the mass incident that happened, suspect's iPhone, and how much the government paid to do it. Of the $36.2 million in legal costs fighting such lawsuits last year, the Justice Department accounted for $12 million, the Homeland Security Department for $6.3 million, and the Pentagon for $4.8 million. The three departments accounted for more than half the government's total records requests last year. The figures reflect the final struggles of the Obama administration during the 2016 election to meet President Barack Obama's pledge that it was, quote, the most transparent administration in history, despite wide recognition of serious problems coping with requests under the information law. It received a record 780,769 requests for files last year and spent a record $478 million answering them and employed 4,263 full-time FOIA employees across more than 100 federal departments and agencies. That was higher by 142 such employees the previous year. The mainstream media continues to cry about current President Donald Trump and his accusations of fake news, factually based accusations, mind you, and claimed that he is a threat to the so-called free press. Yeah, take a look at Obama. It is vitally important to remember that in addition to restricting the access to information that should be freely available, costing American taxpayers exponential amounts in court costs and attorneys' fees, in an effort to hide their shady business, journalists that attempted to expose the nature of that business were targeted and systematically attacked. Just hitting the highlights from investigative journalist Cheryl Atkinson, the IRS secretly begins targeting conservative groups that are seeking nonprofit tax-exempt status by singling out ones that have Tea Party or Patriot in their names. Obama administration pursues espionage charges against NSA whistleblower Thomas Drake, according to the ACLU. Spy charges were later dropped and Drake pled guilty to a misdemeanor. The judge called the government's conduct in the case unconscionable. The Obama administration also secretly applied for a FISA warrant to obtain Google email information of Fox News reporter James Rosen in a leak investigation without telling Rosen. In 2011, Obama intel officials capture a record incidental private communications between Congressman Dennis Kucinich, a Democrat, and a Libyan official. The recordings are later leaked to the press. Fox News reporter Mike Levin is subpoenaed by the Department of Justice regarding a story he reported about a federal grand jury's indictments of terrorism suspects. The subpoena is later dropped. Obama U.S. Attorney for Arizona Dennis Burke secretly leaked sensitive government information to Fox News, allegedly to retaliate against ATF whistleblower John Dodson in the Fast and Furious case. Burke is the former chief of staff to Arizona Governor Janet Napolitano. Obama administration secretly changes long-standing policy. The change creates a loophole that Senator Ron Wyden would later say allows the NSA to conduct backdoor searches of incidental collection of U.S. citizens' domestic communications. Yeah, he's transparent, all right, with everybody else's information. In 2012, CBS News correspondent Cheryl Atkinson is targeted on both her home and work computers for her investigative work researching the Department of Justice gun-walking operation nicknamed Fast and Furious that secretly let thousands of weapons to be trafficked to Mexican drug cartels. One of the walked guns had been used, with the incident with Brian Terry. The FBI incidentally stumbles across emails revealing CIA Director Petraeus' affair with his biographer, Broadwell. FBI Director Robert Mueller is notified of the affair on a date the government will not disclose. The FBI later says it interviewed Petraeus and Broadwell and concluded national security hasn't been breached. The FBI keeps all of this information secret. You wonder why. And these incidents are just a handful of the many that took place during Obama's 8 long-year reign of terror over Washington and over America. As our rights were stripped, the Constitution became little more than words on paper, and the foundational concept of freedom and liberty became something you simply read about. More continues to be uncovered as we finished year 2 of the Trump administration, yet very little, if anything, has been done. Many are beginning to wonder if anything ever will be done. How could you when you're being attacked on all sides, There are more pressing issues at this point, but he'll get to them, believe you me, as soon as we see